This is just a question on me first. In my life, specifically last year and a few years prior, I had a few traumatic incidents where I was assaulted leaving like my office, a club, and then by an old friend. I want to know what I did to attract that, what I did to incur that to my life.
The important thing to realize when you're trying to connect the dots, a very helpful thing is to acknowledge how once something happened, what was the emotional content for you? In other words, it was frightening.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. And any other strong emotion come to mind, or is that the dominant one?
It created, or...
In retrospect, yes, but at the time...
It made me feel like absolute shit at the time.
Like disrespected?
Disrespected, valueless, or that my only value was my physical form.
So don't go further with that. So how you felt was terrified, and those things. And so now connect the dots, and we're just going to ask you a straight up question. Did you ever feel that way before the assault?
When I was like 3 or 4, before I moved.
Well, see, so here's the deal. You're not connecting the dots. It can't happen. There has to be an invitation to everything. And we know it's hard to hear, because what people usually say to us is, Abraham, I never thought about that. Or this business about deliberate creating must not be real, because I would not have created that for myself. And that's when we say, we didn't say you did it intentionally or even on purpose, but you did do it. And if there's no recognition of any thoughts like that, then you can't connect the dots. So then you get to connect the dots after the fact. In other words, there's only 2 ways to know what your point of attraction is. One is it manifests. And the other is you have emotional guidance that lets you know. So we're not going to try to pin you down and make you admit something that doesn't feel like it was real. So what happened when you were 3?
I had an abusive father, and all before I moved, or my parents split up and we moved to Florida, he was very aggressively and abusive. And
do you feel like you did any trending about that afterward? The minute that he walked out of your life, did he really leave your life?
We left his life.
So when you were no longer together, did you think about it? Did you talk about it? And here's the question that's worth considering. Almost always when somebody leaves somebody for some reason, they never stop talking about the reason, because they keep needing to justify how right they were. And so the trending continues, even though the big fear factor, the boogeyman, was gone, so to speak. But if the fear is still there, there are plenty of boogeymen that will fill the bill. So do those dots connect for you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Trending that fear and creating it more.
Yeah.
Wow.
The law of attraction is so consistent. And that's one of the things that's so lovely about learning it. Sometimes people will say, I'm learning how to work law of attraction. We say, well, law of attraction is really working you, because it's responding to what you've got going on. So now, someone asked a wonderful question earlier about letting go of that. And we offered a sort of impertinent sounding, snarky response, meant in absolute love, from heaven. We said, you don't have to undo it, just trend differently now. Just trend differently now. And so the way you could trend differently now is, I connected the dots. I see how that was a habit of thought. I never did like having those thoughts. It was a long ago time. I don't know.
Self-abuse.
Say what?
The self-abuse of the thought process.
Those are good words. And again, it falls into the category of wanting to be right rather than feel good. And also, we want you to all give yourselves a break. Most of the world that surrounds you doesn't want you to ever forget the bad things, because much of the world will say right out loud, if you don't focus upon the abuse of history, it will repeat itself. And we say the opposite is true. The opposite is true.
Focusing on the joy and the happiness.
But you see, what we said earlier, humans, we love you so much. You do offer most of your vibration in response to what you're observing. The analogy that we offer is, if you're 3 and your toe gets chopped off by a train, you have a different relationship with trains than most people. It's not easy to keep trending forward on things like that, because when something that you didn't want to happen happens, we understand why you might think about it, but we're going to give you a very powerful tool. And as you absorb this, and you will easily, we can feel it, the different trending will begin immediately. When something happens that you really, really, really don't want, or even when you think about it, an equivalent desire is born in the vortex. So when that's going on, without even being able to speak the words, the assumed words, in other words, when you know what you don't want, isn't there a powerful, easy to understand assumption of what you do want? And so that happened to you, and it happened to you, and as a result, you built a vibrational atmosphere in your vortex that has served you really well for a long time. It just kind of depends on which way you're tipping in the moment. So now we're going to ask you, again, a personal question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but around... Timing is everything. We were about to say, around the time of this attack, how are you trending? What was going on in your life? Bipping along, living happily ever after, or what were you after? What were you?
Base pleasures, and I was hanging out with, now retrospectively, the wrong people and engaging in activities that I shouldn't have.
Well, that's all right, because we don't want to judge any of them, because a lot of those kind of people are really a lot of fun. But we get why you would...
I was great at parties.
We get that. But what we want to know is more your emotional content. In other words, were you feeling not part of that group? Were you feeling not let in? Were you feeling...
I was feeling not a part of myself. I was feeling almost as if I was like remote controlling a drone from 1,500 miles away.
All right, that sounds really good. It's logical. And we can see how in retrospect you could find those words. But what we're looking for is something more dot connecting like.
I was lost. I was sad about everything.
Again, pretty ethereal. What kinds of things? In other words, lost? Lost why? Lost how? In what ways was it showing up to you?
I was engaging in activities that I didn't actually enjoy.
Because?
Because I was trending with the thought process of no self-respect, no love for
myself. But what we're getting at is, we're encouraging all the time that you calibrate to your inner being. Well, almost everybody, for a good part of their life, is calibrating to whoever the big one is who might hurt you if you don't mind them, or whoever the peer group is who might disapprove of you. It's that sort of thing. And not knowing that you're reaching for resonance with source, which feels like power and clarity and love. Sometimes you're reaching for something that's more seemingly available, which is someone else to let you in. And so would you say you were sort of trying to play a role that would evoke response from the others around you?
Most definitely.
Yeah. So not calibrating to your inner being. So now connect those dots.
I was trying to be something that I wasn't. I was trying to do something I didn't enjoy.
I was trying to fill a void. I was trying to be recognized. I was trying to be appreciated. I was trying to be seen. I was trying to be heard. All of those are really wonderful, valid things to want. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you don't think you are being seen, and so then you're trying from that place of what? Insecurity?
Insecurity, lag.
And so can you feel how connecting some of those dots, we're sort of doing it in reverse, but it's helpful because now it helps you to know, yeah, I can see how I was trending that way. And how do you know? In other words, did you get on a bicycle and ride it first thing off, or did you skin your knees some? Everybody does. You have to crash and burn a little bit in order to gain your balance on some things. It's all part of the value of the contrast. But now, from where you stand now, having had 2 discussions about 2 things, don't you feel more understanding of how it happened, which was exactly what you asked us?
Yes.
Why would that happen? Do you have any question in your mind whatsoever now?
No.
Does anybody else? Then this was a good conversation, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I have one more for you. I was in
Can you hear clearly?
2 years ago, I was working as a manager for a cancer research nonprofit. And I found, while I enjoyed helping the people, I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing. And I've transitioned into managing an environmental company. And I really love that I'm being part of the solution and helping to create plant the tree that your grandkids will shade under.
Yeah.
But I find myself still having like a void in me with that. I feel like I'm
Well, it's
either
because
not
you're
doing
making
it
a
right.
judgment. You're saying cancer research is much more helpful and much more important than planting trees. That's the story that you've been telling to yourself. And your inner being doesn't agree with that story, and so that's what the tug of war is.
Well, I felt that same way at the cancer research nonprofit. I felt that there was, in almost the exact same way, I felt like it wasn't a completing aspect. It wasn't.
So connect those dots. So what is it that those 2 experiences and others, what does it feel like the contrasting experience is pointing you toward? What's the I want out of this? In other words, you know what you don't want. What's the I want out of this? It's in your vortex. Can you verbalize it? If you can't, we will.
I want to do good and to help those who can't help themselves, to help those who are being pushed down, who have, as I was in the past. I want to be that person to help other people.
All right, so stay with us for a little bit. You all hang in here, all right? Did you hear us earlier when we said, we say it all the time, that when you feel negative emotion, whether it's uneasiness or frustration or right down to fear or rage, whenever you feel negative emotion, it means your inner being has a different take on something than you do. So when you feel that discord, it means your inner being is thinking a different thought. Can you find what your inner being might be thinking about that? In other words, if your thought is, I want to help those who can't help themselves. The thing about that is, if you hold someone as your object of attention and you see them as incapable of helping themselves, so you help them from that place, you're emitting a vibration that your inner being isn't joining you in, so you don't have a lot of power. That's why it feels kind of futile and not very important. But when you connect with what your inner being knows, which is that everyone has the power within them to be or do or have whatever they want, and that you want to be a catalyst to point them to their own power, that's a whole other thing.
And I feel much more confident in those words to be that catalyst.
That's a whole other thing. But you gave it away when you said, like I was when I was downtrodden and being beat up on by somebody and I felt powerless. So you're relating to that powerlessness, and you don't want anybody else to feel that powerlessness, but you're feeling the powerlessness while you're not wanting them to feel powerlessness, so you're not hooking into your inner being, so you don't have power, and that's why it feels like it's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to have lots of experiences deciding how you want to spend your time. And you're not ever going to be stuck in one thing just because you decided you were going to do it and started moving that way. You're going to continue to refine what's the path of least resistance for you to be that powerful uplifter that you are born to be, you see. You're going to have so much fun following this path. Just remember, if it doesn't feel good, there's a reason. And then poke around in there till you figure out what it is. Really good. Really good. Really good.